Hello, website friends. Pauline here. I am really looking forward to our masterclass today. I'm going to share with you lots of tips and information on using color psychology for your website. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, so let me go ahead and make my adjustment down here and we will get started. What you can expect to learn today. I'll talk about why color is so important in building the know, like, and trust factor with your audience. And if you've been in online business for any time at all, you'll know that those three words, know, like, and trust, are super important in persuading people to buy from you. Next, we'll talk about the likely color season of your business and why you need to keep that in mind and why that research is very important. You don't want your website to look dated, so I will share with you some current trends that I'm seeing in website colors to help you look fresh and up to date. Once you know your website colors, then I encourage you to keep them organized and make your life easier in all aspects of your brand and your online visibility. And of course, some tips for you in using your website colors to keep you on the right track with actual implementation. I'm Pauline Wiles. You can find me always at paulinewiles.com. I specialize in creating high impact, very beautiful, very professional websites for small businesses and solo entrepreneurs, especially if you run a service-based business. I create websites one-on-one for private clients, and I have a growing number of resources to help you if you want to make your website on your own. So let's dig into this know, like, and trust factor. Color plays a huge part in how your clients perceive you, and so it's important to keep them and their journey in mind as you decide on colors for your website. You're going to want to do some thinking about who your ideal client is, why they come to you for help, either with the product that you sell or the service that you provide, and how you want them to feel both during the time that they work with you and after. What adjectives are they likely to use in terms of their experience in working with you or enjoying the products that you provide? And what adjectives would you like to come up during this discussion about how you want them to feel as a result of your work? Now, in all of these aspects, color for your client is a very personal thing. And let me say a bit more about that. Right before we get too deep into this, I want to acknowledge that color is cultural as well as personal. The English-speaking world, we don't even all spell color the same way. So this slide, this chart is not mine. You can find it at bit.ly/colors-cultures. Here's a slightly bigger version. I still don't expect you to be able to read this, but when you go across to this website to take a look at the chart here, what you'll see is that for different countries in the world, different regions, and different emotions, we have different colors associated with them. So red is a really good example of a color that can mean very different things in different cultures. And right here and now, I want to acknowledge where I'm coming from, a Western upbringing in Europe, and now I live in North America. My understanding of color may be quite different from your understanding of color, and of course, your ideal client as well. So just a bit of awareness here that color is something that we respond to on both a personal level, but also with a lot of cultural awareness as well. So I talked about know, like, and trust. This is really what I want your website to help you achieve as you build your audience and as you have a platform then to show the world the type of work that you do. Why is this important? Well, for starters, if you mess up on the trust factor, 94% of people will associate a poorly designed website with a loss of trust. I don't want that to be you, and color is going to play a big part. The rest of your design plays a part as well, but color is definitely up there. When you use color well, and you think about how you want the colors on your website to make people feel, then you're going to be boosting the aspects of them liking you. When your web design is cohesive and intentional, you also give the impression that you're trustworthy because you've got your act together and you know what you're presenting to the world. Equally, when your colors fit both the business vibe that you're trying to give off, and they represent the values that you want to convey, again, you're boosting that like factor for people. And when you're consistent in your use of color, you're showing professionalism, you're showing attention to detail. That again helps people to feel they can trust you, that they're in good hands. And it also helps them to recognize you in the different places online that they come across you. And so you're boosting the know factor. So color is playing a role here for knowing, liking, and trusting you in the eyes of your ideal client. I want you to be able to use color very confidently on your website and, in fact, across your online activities. But what does that look like? What does color confidence actually mean? Well, I argue that it absolutely means that you're using color confidently on your website and you're being discerning about your choice of color. You've put some thought into it and your color choices are intentional. All these other aspects and the ways that you could use color, these are pretty much optional and they will depend on what you're trying to achieve. But color can send very different signals. It can send a signal that you're bold, that you're energizing, or that you're calm and that you're traditional. So a great number of ways that you can signal different visitor experiences with the colors that you choose. So your turn. I'm going to show you a handful of website snapshots, and I invite you to think about each of them and decide, are they using color confidently? Are they using color discerningly? So in each case, I'll pause for a moment, give you a chance to take a look before I say a few words on the examples here. This is basically a furniture business in North America. They paint the furniture, and so it's very important on their website that they give the impression that they know what they're doing with color. And I argue that this page is beautifully put together. It's extremely cohesive. And although these colors don't shout at us, I'm definitely getting the impression here that this is a company confident with color. Very famous chocolate company. Strong statement here. So purple is the product, purple is the brand. Clearly they are all about this nice rich purple color. Yeah, they have a lot of brand recognition associated with their purple. I would say they are smart people to go all in on the purple look here on this web page. Next example, I'll let you take a look here. Farrow & Ball are a paint company. Pretty sure they are based in and originate from England. They, in fact, are highly skilled with color, but from this small snapshot of their website, I'm not sure that we really get that sense of real color confidence. If anything, I suspect that on this page, they are trying to achieve a message of eco-awareness and safety in terms of paint fumes, instead of actually trying to impress you with their color knowledge. Next example for you. Wow, okay, so this page doesn't pack any punches. It's DHL. They have clearly chosen that they want to talk to us in yellow and red, and my gosh, they are doing so. So yeah, very confident use of color there, and I hope it's having the brand impact that they were looking for. Last example for you here, a decor company, I think based in Scotland. Again, color is a huge part of what they do. This is a very colorful web page. There's a lot going on in terms of visuals and colors, but to my eyes at least, they're pulling this off nicely. They've got a very confident and yet very curated look going on here with their colors. So a few examples there of companies who have made very deliberate choices about the colors that they want you to see on their website. Let's talk now about the notion that your business has a season and that the season of your business should be represented by the colors that you choose. Now, this is especially important to be aware of when you are the face of your business, you are selling your time, and people are coming very much to work with you because you represent more or less the entirety of the service and the brand. And ideally, if that's the case, then your personality and your own season as an individual, hopefully that doesn't compete too hard with your business. So what do I mean about a business season? Well, this isn't my research, and in fact, I strongly recommend that you go to the source. Fiona Humberston is an incredibly talented brand professional. Her book is How to Style Your Brand, a wonderful read, and she summarizes this notion of business seasons in the article that I've made a bit.ly link for you, bit.ly/Fiona-Seasons. So a definite shout out to Fiona Humberston for this approach and this way of looking at your business colors. She argues that there are 4 seasons for your business and that we can associate them with some adjectives which go along with that seasonal feeling. So for example, in spring, we enjoy fresh energy. It's about youth and renewal and optimism. Summer is a quieter business season, more thoughtful, more calm, a little understated. Autumn businesses are all about the natural environment, the history and longevity of your brand and your business, being very authentic, being friendly to the earth and our planet. And then winter businesses, this is where the drama and the confidence lives. The downside of a winter business is you might come across as a little arrogant and aloof, but this is where your business sits if you have a no-nonsense vibe and you want to give off a very high-end, very luxury appeal. So 4 business seasons there, and really helpful to think about where you might be and where your business message is coming across in terms of those seasonal adjectives. So it's just important to know that whatever season you intentionally or unintentionally pick, then yes, you are sending signals to your clients and your ideal clients with that choice. And color is a big part of the choice. So here are 2 client websites that I've worked on. One that's more spring-like, one that's more in the summer color palette. Autumn, perhaps, not necessarily. This isn't, I'd say, the ideal fit for autumn, but a more wintry, crisp and luxury look with the website down here. So when you think about how these seasons are going to translate to your website palette, just know that you can have a very different vibe going on, largely based, not entirely of course, but largely influenced by the color choices that you make. So your turn here. What adjectives and feelings are you hoping that your clients will experience or associate with working with you? And based on those client feelings that you want to evoke, what might your business season be? So I'll pause, I'll give you a moment to think about that. As a reminder, here are some of the adjectives that you might see associated with the different business seasons. And once again, a reminder, there's a lot more information there in Fiona Humberston's work. Pause your video if you'd like to, otherwise we'll move on when you're ready. Okay, so that's business seasons and why you should definitely consider them when you're thinking about color psychology. They make a big difference in how you're perceived. Also important in how you're perceived, website color trends do not stay the same. Don't worry, it's not like buying a new lipstick. There's not a new one every season, but you do want to be aware of the way some general things are moving along in the web design world. This will help you avoid a website that looks like you put it together 10 years ago. In general, in websites these days, we are seeing very plain backgrounds and usually in pale colors. It's not unusual now for many websites to have a white background, or if not white, then a color that's super, super close to white. Equally, these days we're seeing lots of empty space on websites. If you have a site already, please take a look and make sure that the visual impression is not too busy and too cluttered. Empty space really is your friend in helping your website look fresh and modern. And then for the colors that are in use, we're seeing what I would call more blended colors, more sophisticated choices. Let me show you some examples as to what that actually looks like. And we'll do that by taking a look at some big corporations and how their website color palettes have evolved in just the past few years. So not very long ago at all, when you went to the American Express website, it was blue, blue, blue. And to be honest, not a very sophisticated shade of blue, very straightforward, very uncomplicated, if you like. This is blue, this is Amex, and they are owning this, definitely. Now let's take a look at the Amex website today. A very different vibe here. Now, aside from the fact that we've got far more people featured on their website, the colors that are in use, yes, there's still blue going on. There's still blue in each one of these screenshots, but they're using a much wider color palette to convey, I think, more depth and humanity to us. They are no longer pinning all their hopes on shades of blue. They've got the confidence now to use actually quite a wide palette and still feel sure that you will identify with their brand. Another example, big IT company called Oracle. Again, just a few years ago, Oracle were hanging everything off the red in their brand. So red is their main corporate color. Everywhere you went, whether it was a building exterior, their massive conference, it was all red, red, red. Very non-compromising. And depending where you are in the world, red could have very strong cultural associations for you. These days, wow, what a difference. Okay, so the whole Oracle brand has been softened to use much more blended tonal colors. The red is still there, but my gosh, we're seeing a large color palette now and a much softer and, if you like, more human feeling color palette. So that's a big change. This one I've actually put both on one page. So Sinopec, big energy company, international conglomerate. Again, their colors are basically these primary shades. These are not sophisticated colors. But now on their website, you see that alongside the corporate red and the corporate blue, they're bringing in some almost watery kind of natural shades. And I suspect that's not an accident, because they want to give us a feeling probably of more environmental responsibility. These are the no-nonsense colors up here. Down here, we've got the slightly warmer feeling, slightly more human or aware of nature colors building into their website. So this is how we're seeing the big corporations get more sophisticated, if you like, about their color palettes. Another way of saying this, these colors on the left-hand side, I call them primary colors. You may know them by a different description, but they're not very blended. They're not very complicated. They're quite pure colors. Many big corporations, and I would argue good website design in general, is moving away from this type of color palette to something that's a lot more blended. There's a lot more nuances going on here. And it gives a much more modern look to your website when you choose your colors that are just a bit more thoughtful. Now, that said, if you've had branding work done and your brand is very much in this family of very pure colors, very primary colors, then you might be feeling a bit concerned because you can't move away to this type of color palette that I'm recommending. And if that's the case, if you're feeling that your colors are a bit corporate, a bit old-fashioned corporate, and that's not the type of target client that you're aiming for, then what you're going to do, I recommend, is to soften the rest of your look, even if you're stuck with those colors. So if you combine those primary colors with a no-nonsense font, you're going to come across as very corporate and somewhat dated. So the way around that would be to soften your font, or even you can go further and choose an even softer font. Don't do this, of course, for entire paragraphs. Use this for your headlines and your headings, and make sure that your paragraphs is still in something that's easier to read. And then alongside softening things like fonts, you're going to want to soften your photos, the headshot of yourself, even the clothing type that you use, if you're trying to get away from that old-fashioned corporate look into something that feels a bit more modern and more approachable. So, some thoughts now on how you would go about exploring colors. The tools that I'm about to show you, they are all listed in this free download that I make available. I've highlighted the top 33 tools that I like to use for website development and my business. And you can get your free copy from bit.ly/PW resources. So if you want to dig into these, take a look there at that list. But these are some of my favorite tools for exploring colors to help you think about your color choices. So colorsupply.com, note this funky spelling here, is a really nice way if you'd like to explore different color schemes, and they're arranged according to formal color principles. So you'll see complementary schemes and split color schemes and all that good stuff. And one thing I really like is they give you the scheme and then they show you some examples of how it's going to look when you actually combine those colors together. Colorhunt.co is a really nice place to go, and you can basically snoop at some color palettes that other people have uploaded. That's nice for inspiration. Don't necessarily go and take something like this and use only this as your website colors, because you're going to have problems here with legibility. For example, if you put, to me this looks like a lilac shade on this pinky shade, there isn't enough contrast there for that to actually work as a standalone website palette, but it gives you a nice jumping off point. One of my favorites, designseeds.com, has a beautiful selection of photos and the corresponding color schemes that you might pull from that photo. So that's a really nice place to go and check out some colors. And again, here's one photo-based, coolers.co/image-picker. allows you to see what website color schemes might result from a photo if you feel drawn to those colors. And then, since you're probably wondering by now exactly how do you go and choose your website colors, I have a separate tutorial on that topic. It's your quick start guide to choosing your colors. So this is where color gets very personal. And because you're watching this masterclass, the color quick start tutorial is bundled for you. So you have access to that alongside this. So please do use the two videos as complementary companions. Let's talk now when you have in fact decided on your website colors about keeping yourself organized. So being consistent is super important. I already said that in order for people to trust you and to recognize you, so that's know and trust, you want to be consistent everywhere that you use color and everywhere you're showing up with colored items. So that means everywhere in your brand, across social media, your email newsletter, any paid adverts you're doing. And yet, if you're still using printed stationery and invoices and business cards, then you want your colors to be the same there as well. Don't go guessing at your colors and thinking that a red is a red is a red, because it really isn't. People will notice. Keep consistent and do that by organizing your colors, which is a fancy way of saying just know the codes that represent the 5 or 6 colors in your brand palette and stick to those. Keep them handy so that wherever you're designing something or you're working with a designer, you can supply your color codes. So hex, I'll show you that in a moment. That's a shorthand for hexadecimal. Don't worry about it. And making yourself a style sheet can be a really nice way to stay consistent and remind yourself of what your overall brand appearance should look like. So, for example, here are some of my colors. You might choose to organize yourself using something like palette.app. 3 T's there in palette. If you're a color geek like me, palette.app lets you dig into and explore the relationships between your colors in terms of hue, value, and saturation. If you're a color geek, you'll love those words. If you're not, then don't worry about them. But I mentioned hex code. So down this column here for my colors, you'll see 6 numbers or letters. And that basically is the unique representation for each of these colors. And so I know that if I use this exact color code next time I need a dark blue, I'm going to get the same dark blue. Hex is very commonly used for online color specification. You will come across other conventions, especially in the print world. But for our purposes today, all I'm saying to you is know your codes, write them down. If it's just on a post-it note on your computer, that's fine too. The main thing is just know those codes and stick with the same ones. A question to consider is whether you should actually go and test different website colors and see what reaction you get and whether your conversions improve. So, should you test your colors? My answer is maybe. If you have a high traffic website, a lot of clicks and a lot of conversions, then yes, it might be worth changing your button colors, doing some A/B testing. So that's where you basically split your website traffic, do one thing with one set, one thing with the other. Do that testing and see what it tells you. But I would only really recommend that in a case where you do have a high number of visitors and a lot going on so that you get good data. If you're a service-based business, you're selling high-ticket service packages, you probably don't have enough website traffic to really test this adequately. Equally, if you've been right the way through this masterclass and you've also watched the tutorial on choosing your own website colors, if you still feel ambivalent and you can't make up your mind, then maybe it's worth doing some testing. I think the best approach for you is to have a quick chat with some of your ideal clients and see what colors they really respond to. But other testing options, if you want to, without making over your whole website, you could do something straightforward, for example, with paid advertising. If you have a Pinterest account, go ahead and create 2 identical pins where all you're changing is color A for color B. Then you can pay for a small amount of advertising for those pins and see what appears to land better with the audience that you're talking to. And you can follow that same approach with other paid ads. You can spend $5 or $10 and see if there's much of a difference in how people are responding to the colors that you're considering. However, in general, as I say, unless you've got a lot of traffic and a lot of clicks, then formal testing may not get you very far. And a few cups of coffee with your ideal client can probably tell you much more. So when you feel ready to actually use your website colors, here are my pointers for the best way to do that. I already said that if in doubt, keep your website background very pale. Now, there are a few industries or creative niches where a pale background won't be suitable for you. But if you're not sure, then do yourself a favor, keep it pale. It's generally much easier to design dark text on a pale background than it is to flip those two. Definitely don't be afraid of that empty space. That is your friend. It will help your site look very fresh and modern. So dark text, pale background. And then as you get into the steps that you want your website visitor to take, your so-called call to action, this is where you start to use your brighter or your more eye-catching colors. This doesn't mean your buttons have got to be bright orange, but just bring it up a level in terms of how eye-catching the color is when it's associated with an action you'd like your visitor to take. Bonus points if you can arrange your buttons so that they have a hover color, which means that when somebody hovers over the button, it changes color slightly. That's an extra signal to your website visitor that the button will in fact do something and lead them somewhere. This is bundled for you. If you're watching this masterclass, you have access to a bundle of color resources, and this is one of them. It contains for you ready-made website color schemes that I've put together because I know they're going to work nicely as a group. So in each of these, you're going to see, for example, a pale color that would work as your background, a very dark color, not black in most cases, but a dark color that will be fine for your text. And then the 3 colors to the right of each row, you can consider using these for your buttons, your calls to action, your highlight colors, to bring a bit of interest to the visual aspects of your website. So do take a look at these done for you color schemes. You will not go far wrong if you've got a background that's pale, a dark text, and then accent colors for calls to action. More advice on using your website colors. Alongside the actual text and buttons and background, you want your photo colors to play very nicely as well. So make sure your photos are on brand, both in terms of the subject of the photo, but the colors that show up in the photo itself. I warmly encourage you to think about the diversity of the people that you're showing in photos. Your website is a chance, of course, not only to show photos of the clients that you hope to work with, but it's also a great vehicle for you to showcase your personal values and your business values. Do make sure that the headshot you choose is playing nicely and is somewhat harmonious with your brand colors. If you're that wedding planner and you want to have a website that is shades of lilac and pink, then I advise against a headshot where you're wearing an orange suit. That's going to step outside your brand for sure. And I suggest using grayscale for logos. Let me show you this. Yeah, so if you've been fortunate and you've been featured on a lot of different media outlets and you want to have a lot of social proof on your website to show that you're an expert and you've been featured, the colors in all those logos are going to look pretty chaotic pretty fast. So one thing you can consider is just tint them all, make them grayscale, make them more lean towards your brand colors. And that way you've got a really nice look on your website that conveys your expertise without this clashing experience of color for your website visitor. In terms of those brand photos, I warmly suggest that when you're choosing pictures, especially for your website, somewhat for your social media, but especially for your website, a good stock photo is a better choice than a poor quality real life photo. Now, of course, you don't want to go on your website and claim that this is a real client of yours if that's not the case. But in general, your website will be far, far stronger if you are mindful of photo quality and, if necessary, use stock photos instead of real life photos that are not quite up to par. And in terms of where you then find these photos, again, these resources are listed for you in my collection of 33 business tools. Pixabay is pretty widely known, but did you know that once you've hunted for a photo on Pixabay, there's a filter that you can apply where you're then shown the photos that are more in the color family that you have in mind. That's a really nice way of narrowing down your options and keeping your photos more on brand. Other sources I like, Kate Max Stock has the opportunity to look at stock photos by color. Same applies for this site, which is very nice, SC Stock Shop, really nice opportunity to search there by color. Warmly recommended. And then I already mentioned that I would love for you to think about photo diversity as you put your website together and you think about the overall message that you're sending out to the world. These 3 websites also listed for you in my tools list. These are really nice places to visit if you'd like some good quality stock photos with more diversity for the people who are in them. Why do we care about all this? Coming back to how I started, color is an underlying principle when you're building know, like, and trust with your audience. When you get your color right and when you keep it consistent, you're doing yourself huge favors with how both you and your business are perceived. Why do we care about that? I can't even read this slide out to you in the time it takes you to decide whether or not it makes a good first impression. Okay, web design gives almost an instantaneous reaction to the people that visit our websites, and I want your reaction to be a really positive one. Okay, resources for you. Come and find me at paulingwells.com. That's the best place to access all of my information, and specifically the resources that I've talked about in this masterclass and the ones that are bundled for you. You can go directly to bit.ly pw-resources to find the access to the other training material that you have there. That destination includes 2 of my free and popular guides, a simple website starter kit, and that list of tools that I like, where you'll find many of the links for websites that we've talked about today. In any case, I hope this guide to color was helpful for you. I hope you now feel confident to move forward with your website colors. I'm Pauline Wiles, and I'll see you next time.